Hi, hello, vanakkam, and welcome to Little Sla YouTube channel. Today, in this video, we are going to see about an interesting topic. But before I introduce you the topic, let me introduce you few persons and let's see what do they face. So we have Lee, an online shopper with color blindness. So Lee is colorblind and he encounters barriers when shopping online. He has one of the most common visual disabilities that affect men, the red and green color blindness. Lee frequently shops online and sometimes encounter problems on websites and with apps where the color contrast of text and images is not adequate and where color alone is used to indicate required fields and sales prices. When red and green color combinations are used, Lee cannot distinguish between the two since both look brown to him. It is also very difficult for him to make product choices when color swatches are not labeled with the name of the color. Lee has better experiences with online content and apps that use adequate contrast and allow him to adjust contrast settings in his browser. He is also better able to recognize when information is required when asterisks are used. Lee can more easily identify the products he would like to purchase, especially clothing, when the color label names are included in the selection options rather than color swatches alone. We'll see another person who is Alex, who is a reporter with repetitive stress injury. And Alex has worked as a reporter for more than 20 years and has developed a repetitive strain injury that makes it painful to use a mouse and to type for extended periods of time. Though it took considerable research, time, and commitment to learn, he is able to work with less pain using the following modifications to his work environment, such as using an ergonomic keyboard, using keyboard commands without a mouse, using voice recognition software on his computer and mobile phone, assistive touch, and on his mobile phone. Alex encounters problems when websites and other online content cannot be navigated by keyboard commands alone. He frequently encounters web forms that do not have keyboard equivalents. Sometimes it is also difficult to skip content and navigate to sections on a web page without using many keyboard commands, which is very tiring and limits the time he can spend working comfortably. He also recently began to explore the use of assistive touch on his mobile phone, which also helps him use fewer gestures and work for long periods of time. As a temporary fix, Alex's employer has built several custom workarounds that provide keyboard support for his use of the company's internal content management system with the intent to implement improved keyboard support to benefit all users on the next release of the software. There are millions of people like Alex and Lee who face difficulties in using the web applications and the mobile applications. So today we are going to see about the testing which is related to accessibility, which is accessibility testing. So what is accessibility testing? Accessibility testing is widely used to check the application for disabled persons and make sure the developer creates the application which is accessible for all types of users like a regular user and physically challenged, for those who are disabled to see, to learn, and so on. So, what is web accessibility? Before we see about accessibility testing, let's see what is web accessibility. So, web accessibility means that websites, tools, and technologies are designed and developed so that people with disabilities can use them. More specifically, people can perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with the web, contribute to the web. And this web accessibility encompasses all disabilities that affect access to the web, like the auditory, cognitive, neurological, physical, speech, and visual. And this web accessibility benefits people without disabilities. For example, people who use mobile phones, smartwatches, smart TVs, and other devices with small screens and different input methods. And older people with changing abilities due to aging, and people with temporary disabilities such as broken arm or lost glasses, and people with situational limitations such as in bright sunlight or in an environment where they cannot listen to audio, and people using a slow internet connection or who have limited or expensive bandwidth. So, do we all know that the Fortune 500 companies have been sued for this reason, that the websites or the applications were not being user friendly to the people who cannot access it very easily? And this accessibility is important for individuals, business, and society, and that is the reason we have to make the web accessible, and we have various ISO standards and various rules and regulations have set up by every country to make it accessible to every user. And this web accessibility depends on several components working together, including the web technologies, the web browsers, and other user agents. So basically, there are few myths and facts when it comes to accessibility testing. Something like there's a myth telling that the accessibility testing is only for physically challenged people. But the real fact is every user who uses the web application can use the accessibility testing as they enhance the credibility of the web application or the software they uses. And the next one is, while modifying the unapproachable application to the available use, which causes or which takes a lot of time and which costs a lot of money. But the fact is, by working on the typical requirements which are essential for the challenged users, sometimes it is not required to integrate all the modifications at one time. And even this is not costly because we can recognize the accessibility issues during the design phase. And besides the extensive testing which is involved, we can help us by decreasing the cost and save a lot of rework when it has been involved during the design phase. And is this accessibility testing is basic and tedious process to perform? But the fact is we can prepare our application in such a way that all types of users can use it, so that this might not be a tedious process. So how to perform accessibility testing? There are initial phases of doing this accessibility testing, and even we have a lot of tools to test the accessibility. But initial checks for the accessibility testing is modifying the font size to large so that the users can use the large font size and they can check the availability, and then testing for the captions. So by testing this, we make sure that the caption is visible, and we also ensure that it is expressive. And we all know that while accessing the application like Facebook, sometimes the images and videos takes a lot of time to load, but the captions will help us understand what is in the picture and video. And the next one, the third method of doing this testing is by deactivating the style. So while we disable the method and test, the content of the table is accurately lined up. And we can even test whether it is accurately lined up or not. And by testing the applications using high contrast mode. So while we use high contrast mode, we can highlight the website's content, and when we turn the high contrast mode in our windows, the content of the sites gets highlighted automatically as it turns into white or yellow and the background turns black. So to turn on high contrast mode, we can search the high contrast mode in the search box of the start menu on our system, and here we turn on the high contrast, and we can also select a theme from the given drop down list as we choose high contrast theme, as we can see in the below image. Also modifying the settings our browser will look like this. And we have other options like skipping the navigation, where we skip the navigation sometimes as it is helpful for people who have the motor incapacities. We can even change our effort to the top of the page by clicking Ctrl plus Home. And the next one is by testing by turning off the CSS, that is the cascading style sheet. And generally the cascading style sheet is used to define the appearance of the document. And if we turn off this, we can test the text presentation, text style, and background color of the application. And then by using the field label, so by using this field label, it will help us filling a form, because this can be seen as a template, and by filling out the required information while we order something online and login. And the final one is through content scaling, where we can check the image readability while zooming it out. Apart from doing this or approaching this accessibility testing manually, we have other automation tools available in the market, and some of the major or highly used tools are JAWS, we have Hera, we have Wave, we have Accessibility Wallet, and Web Anywhere and Web Accessibility Toolbar. So some of the examples let's see here, like alternative text for images. So these are very few important things which has to be tested while developing the application, or which has to be implemented during the design phase. Something like involving the alternative text for images, where if alt text is not provided for images, the image information is inaccessible, for example to people who cannot see and use a screen reader that reads aloud the information on a page, including the alt text for the visual image. And when equivalent alt text is provided, the information is available to people who are blind as well as to people who turn off images. So it is also available to technologies that cannot see images, such as search engines. And the next thing is the keyboard input. So some people cannot use a mouse, including many older users with limited fine motor control. An accessible website does not rely on the mouse. It makes all functionality available from a keyboard. Then people with disabilities can use assistive technologies that mimic the keyboard, such as speech input. And then we have the transcripts for audio. Just as images are not available to people who can't see, audio files are not available to people who can't hear. Providing a text transcript makes the audio information accessible to people who are deaf or hard of hearing, as well as to search engines and other technologies that can't hear. It's easy and relatively inexpensive for websites to provide transcripts. There are also transcription services that create text transcripts in HTML format. So finally, this accessibility testing explains how easily one can navigate, access, and understand software, and it is for all types of users, and the tester should do the testing from the perspective of everyone. So just like any other type of testing, this testing can also be done manually as well as with the help of automation tools, and the tester's aim should be to check if the guidelines fulfilled or not, and how easily and friendly a user can use the software. So in our future videos, we will see how to use JAWS as a accessibility testing tool, and we will see various tools and techniques using JAWS. Until we meet you with another interesting video, it's bye bye from Vasan Shanmugam and Little's Law.